Hey guys, Coach Jason. Hope you're doing well. So, how do you know that whether you're in a position to consistently improve in either cross country, track, road racing, whether you do a combination of the three or two of the three or whatever you do? Okay, are you doing the things that you need to do along the way to help put you in that position? Okay, that's what I want to talk about today. I'm going to go over 10 things, and essentially they all work in harmony together. So you look at the list. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed saying, oh my God, I have to add 10 things. And so chances are you're doing most of them already. But they kind of flow with each other. So I just want to go over them, give you my perspective on it. Okay, as from 20 plus years experience as a coach, as a former competitive athlete as well, at the high school, college, and post-collegiate level, and coaching at all three levels as well. These are things that I've picked up along the years, along the two plus decades, on both ends, competing and coaching, and that I think might be relevant or valuable to you. And again, I'm sure you know all these things, but how do they flow into each other is of importance. Okay, and not only do I have a bunch of training videos, you just take a look at the description down below, whether it be fully detailed training programs for the 800 meters all the way up to the marathon specific times as well, workouts galore, everything is fully detailed, and a whole bunch of other things as well. But this stuff kind of brings a lot of these things together, which is why I want to talk about this today. So I think it's important. So I encourage you to take a look at the whole video. Just listen to what I'm saying. Don't just pause it and write everything down and then miss everything in between. Okay? I want to go over each one for you. Okay? By the way, if this is your first time to the channel, welcome. And folks, if you haven't subscribed yet and you plan on subscribing, please, if you hit the subscribe button, please let me know in the comments down below that you did subscribe so that I can thank you personally. I really appreciate your support. I want to make this into one of the best running channels out there. And, speaking from experience, I have used all my training programs on athletes that I've worked with, either almost identically or modified, of course. And again, everything you can use here, all my training programs as well, you can follow or modify into something that you feel is most appropriate, or you could also use it as a point of comparison for what you're doing now to where you'd like to go or where you want your athletes to go. So hopefully you'll find something valuable and helpful on this channel. So for my regulars, thank you all so much, and I appreciate your support. And even if you don't plan on subscribing, hitting the thumbs up will be really, really helpful. It's helpful to the growth of the channel, so I appreciate if you do that as well. All right? And if you don't want to miss new videos, make sure you hit the bell next to the subscribe button, and you won't miss them. All right? So let's get to this. I'm sitting down for the most part because I'd be a headless coach either way, and if I angled it up, you'd be missing the bottom, and I don't want you to miss any of it. So, so again, realistically and consistently improving in cross, track, roads doesn't matter. Okay, these are things that I think are really, really important. Number one, communication and evaluation. Now, I said this in some of my other videos as well, my most recent one too, which is in the description down below. Communication is important, whether you're a coach or an athlete. If you're a coach, important to communicate with your athletes. If you're an athlete, important to communicate with your coaches. And it's also important to be honest with yourself and transparent with yourself, okay, because you want to continue to progress. And that's why I like evaluation or reevaluating. You take a look, and this is where keeping a log of some sort, even if it's the most basic log, I just did this and this time, my workouts are here, summary, and blah, blah, blah. You can go back and look and see, okay, what worked and what did I do leading up to this race? This might have been why I ran so fast. What was my training volume here? How do I gradually progress to here? And so on and so forth. It allows you to reevaluate things, which makes communication much easier. So they all kind of flow together. And but communication is key. As a coach, I don't like telling my athletes what I think they want to hear. I'm going to be honest with them, whether it's good or bad. Okay? And if they follow the plan, if they're consistent, they will get better. Period. End of story. Okay? Number two, consistency. And that's with training and recovering. Again, consistency, doing a block of training for a long period of time. Training over the course of the year. And as you know, you run, cross country and track, particularly in school, there is really no off season. Off season is in the summer, but you're still training throughout the summer to put in your base work. But there's down weeks here, down weeks there, and so on and so forth. But if you train consistently, you put yourself in a position to continue to get better. Okay? Obviously, that changes throughout the season, throughout the focus of workouts, of races, but being consistent is one of the most important things you could do. Okay? And at the same time, recovering on the same end, whether that be a day off every week or every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, incorporating that into The training allows you to train and recover consistently and not rely on a drastic peak at the end. There's no magic peak. There's no magic workout. Okay, it does not exist. Okay, it's consistent work over a long period of time. That's going to put you in a position to continue to get better. Okay, but it's also sleeping well. Okay, ice baths if you can, stretching, putting yourself in a position to recover from hard runs and workouts as well. Taking the time, even if it's stretching during a commercial break, if you're watching your favorite show, that 5 minutes makes a difference. 5 minutes is better than no minutes. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3, planning and scheduling races. I like this because I do this a lot. We okay, this is the goal race. Let's say it's the New York City Marathon, and it's in November. Obviously, this year's a little different, but by doing that, it also puts you in a position to not only set up training for it, but if something like this happens, it also allows you to reshuffle things and at the same time stay fit. Like a lot of athletes now, they were going to run a marathon this fall, whether it be November or December, and both being canceled. We're now able to concentrate on some shorter races. At the same time, they've already done a chunk of marathon training up to this point. Now it's going to be easier for them to kind of go down and focus on shorter races as opposed to the other way around and having to really, really ramp things up. Okay? But if you schedule the races out, let's say your goal race is here, whole goal race is there, you can build your training around the races. That way you'll know, okay, we have 16 weeks. Maybe we'll do 4 blocks of 4 weeks each, or however you lay out your training. But by doing that, it allows you to plug in workouts, the key workouts, accordingly, and not really have to worry about, something happens here, something happens there, or feel like you have to race a certain amount of times, and so on and so forth. It kind of relieves the pressure, and particularly with the longer races too. The longer the races are, the less you race. So that's generally the way it goes, particularly with a marathon. And planning those things ahead of time, if you can, really, really can go a long way. And again, planning your off time afterward too, because as a coach, I coach even post-collegiate people. They have lives, they have jobs, they have families, okay? And they want to go on vacation too, and scheduling those things around, if you can, makes it easier for you to modify training or to phase things out and phase things in accordingly. So, and that's where communication comes into key too, okay? Telling them that, okay, I want my family and I go on a vacation this week. Can we schedule around it? Yes, as long as you know ahead of time, it makes it much easier. See, that's where they kind of flow into each other, okay? Number 4, periodic breaks, whether it be off days or downtime or easy weeks. Again, if you're doing a 3-season, cross-country, indoor and outdoor, it makes it a little bit more difficult, but I generally do a down week after each season, and then some schedules, some off days here, off days there. I generally do an off day every 14 or every 21 days, along with some easy runs as well on Sunday. So if your off day is this Sunday, your long run Saturday, then the following week, your long run Saturday, I have you do an easy 3 to 4 miles to flush out the long run the following week, or something like that. It really depends on who you're coaching, their experience, their age, their training environment, all those things. But if you're doing periodic breaks, if we're going for 2 peaks per year, then you can do a little bit more frequent or a little bit longer downtime. And I generally do, particularly after a marathon, I'll do 10 days to 2 weeks off completely, and then a very slow build-up of 4 to 6 weeks just to get back to a good volume, a decent volume, to make sure that they're recovered completely from the marathon. Marathon's not a 5K. You can't recover from in a week. It takes longer to recover from. And again, you can't come back the following week and do it again and expect to run as well or better. It's not as realistic. Has it been done? Yes, but those things have to be taken into consideration. Okay, that's where periodic breaks, and again, going back to consistency, recovering. If you have an off day, you're training and recovering simultaneously without having to rely on some drastic changes in your training. Okay. Number 5, training at the right paces. This one I cannot stress enough. Okay. And I said this in my last video. Take a look in the description down below in terms of being transparent and honest with yourself. If you're a 5-minute miler, you don't, and just because you can hang with the 440 milers or the 430 milers in workouts and some runs, doesn't mean you're ready to run that yet. Okay. Just because you're a 4-hour marathoner and you can do some things with the 330 people, doesn't necessarily mean you're ready to run that yet in a race. Okay. Because the recovery component comes into play. So those people who have either already run those times or are close to it are going to recover from certain runs and workouts differently than you are. So it's important to put yourself in the right position to continue to progress by training at the right zones. How do you know what zones to train in and what paces you should be training at? I'll put a couple of videos down below as well. I like to do a 1 mile time trial to kind of help set your training paces and give you an idea where your current fitness is. And then it'll tell you how to progress from there. And there's another video on how to set the right training paces based on what you run for the 1 mile time trial. And I have all the times broken down from an 8-minute mile down to a 4-minute mile in full detail. So watch both of those videos. It'll make your life a lot easier. I did the work, so you don't really have to. Okay? But that training at the right pace is very, very important. And it also makes sure that you're not overdoing it too much, which can essentially or can put you in a position to get sick or injured or both. Okay? This makes sure that you're not only progressing accordingly, but putting you in a position to stay healthy at the same time. Okay? Number 6, patience. Obviously, being patient. Now, as a competitor, it's really, really hard, and I speak from experience, so I had to learn the hard way. I tried hanging on for dear life when I went from high school to college. My first year, I was hanging on in workouts, and I did well. I became the number 2 guy in college on our team by the end of cross country, but just adjusting in the beginning to the faster pace of the training runs, I was hanging on for dear life, and it took me a long time to recover and kind of work my way up. And I took some bruises and took some hard lessons along the way with some poor races and stuff like that. So being patient is important, okay? Letting things happen, just letting the training and the performances come to you, and doing this can make patience be, a little less of an issue, okay? I speak from experience as well. I'm not the most patient person, so I also like results. But realistically speaking, they'll come when they come. Do people run fast when they least expect it to sometimes? Sure. Can people really, really make jumps? Absolutely. But it's also important to, take everybody's health and safety and well-being into play as well. Engaging in your training and focus. This is why I like 3 to 4 week blocks and periodization. Not only does it help you adapt to a new training stimuli every 3 to 4 weeks, but by introducing something else, you're focusing on something every 3 to 4 weeks that's a little bit different, okay? Kind of helps you stay engaged in the training. Things don't become stale, okay? And by kind of varying, even if you're training for a marathon, sometimes I'll recommend you run a half marathon, maybe a 10K, and a 5K leading up to the marathon. So it'll test your short distance speed, your speed endurance, your strength, and so on, and you kind of your race readiness. So if we can, and that allows you to engage in certain things. It also can help you keep focused, or help you keep your athletes focused by not doing the same thing over an extended period of time without making any change in variety. Okay, because it is important to throw variation into the training as well. Okay. Number 7, this one's important too. Simulating, whether it be a course or a race scenario. Whether you're running, a road race that's hilly, let's say it's a hilly marathon like New York, it's good to simulate as much as you possibly can, at least the very least the long runs or your long tempos or your race simulation workouts over the hills to get you used to the undulating course, but the fluctuation in pace as well. It's very hard to keep an even pace when the course is rolling, and that goes for cross country too. But also, and the same goes for it's flat too, like a Chicago. And then it's good to do your long runs on the flats. Your tempos on the flats, your race pace stuff on the flats to simulate getting that rhythm, whether it be 8-minute miles or 5-minute miles, doesn't matter. But the more you simulate the course, the better off you're going to be. Okay, and the same thing goes for race scenarios. This one here, cross country races, they always go out fast. So one of the workouts that I introduced to my athletes is, let's say it's a 4-mile tempo run. Let's just say 4 miles. And it's 4 miles at 5:30 pace for the mile, or 6-minute pace for the mile, whatever it is. And then this is what I do. I have them repeat this workout. And let's just say twice, okay? Or 3 times. The first time I have them do a hard 400 meter, a hard 1-minute effort in the beginning, just fast, like a mile pace or faster. Gets the heart rate up, simulates the race, and then they take a minute break. And then they go right into the 4-mile tempo, which simulates settling into the race. And then on the back end, they take another minute break, and they repeat that 1 hard minute or 1 hard 400 on the back end to simulate finishing fast at the end. Okay? The second time you do the workout, we cut the rest to 30 seconds. Do the same exact thing. And then the third time we do it, I take the rest completely away. So they're going out hard for a minute, settling right into the tempo, and then finishing hard for a minute right after the tempo. And that simulates doing without any recovery. It's a great way of simulating a race scenario. okay? Or whether it be going, you're doing mile repeats one day, let's say it's 3 times a mile, 4 times a mile, 5 times a mile, running, either a hard 400 in the beginning or a couple of hard 200-meter efforts to get the heart rate up, to then get the most benefit of the workout. And even doing it on the back end, doing 2 by 200 meter on the back end as well to simulate kicking when you're already fatigued. Okay, those are race scenarios. Okay, race scenario type workouts. Okay, or whether it just be an 8-mile run and then on the back end you run the hell out of that last 400 meters of the 8-mile run, or you do the 8-mile run, then you get on the track a couple minutes later and you run a hard 600 meters or 300 meters or whatever it is, to simulate kicking when you're fatigued. There's a lot of different ways you can simulate race scenarios. So those were a couple. Okay. Number 8, splits, especially for courses that you run more than one time. So I used to do this with my athletes at Van Cortlandt Park, okay, up in New York. I coached high school up there. There's essentially, I broke it down into 3 pieces. You start in the beginning here, you get to the bridge, okay, then the back loop, and then the finish, okay? The back loop itself was 2 kilometers, and this was a 4K race. Then it was 800 meters to the finish, and then it was 1,200 meters from the start to the back hills, okay? So I broke it up into pieces. Now, I take the split, or I have one of my athletes or one of the other coaches take the split at 1,200 for all my athletes, and then you take the split again from when you get to the point and the back hills, and then have somebody at the finish, get their finishing time, okay? Or we get to get the results later on, and you see how long it took them to get to the first point, complete the second point, and the third point, and who ran what parts faster, and so on and so forth. And it gives you an idea of any modifications you might need to make in training. Same goes for a 5-mile race. Every mile split, who gets faster, who gets slower, who runs even. Those are important because it allows you to make modifications in training, okay? And that's where splits are important too, because then you can say, okay, we slowed this guy down or this girl down here, but they cut 30 seconds off the back hills just by slowing them down because they went out too fast. And that allowed them to finish stronger. And now look, they just raced 20 seconds faster than they did last time. Those things are important. So that's a way of breaking things down too. And that's generally for courses that you run more than once because it gives you a point of focus and a point of improvement to go after. Okay. Number 9, a multi-pace training system or cycle. Whether I'm training people for the 5K, I incorporate 5K/10K, 3K, mile, and 800 meter stuff. By doing multi-paces, you're addressing speed, you're addressing leg power, endurance, threshold training tempo, your capacity to handle harder work, and so on. But by doing multi-paced, not only does it put you in a position to simulate races, put you in a position to either outkick some kickers or take the sting out of kickers, but you're also putting yourself in a position, or your athletes in a position, for long-term success, okay? Because they're ready for anything, okay? And it doesn't matter, even if you're training for the marathon. I have my athletes do fast 200 meters, a fast 50 meters, a fast 100 meters for stride efficiency, stride pattern. The more efficient your stride is, particularly in the longer races, the better you're going to be at conserving energy, okay? And energy conservation is one of the names of the game in the marathon. The more efficient you are, the better off you're going to be, particularly, when the 20-mile mark hits and either the bear jumps on your back or it doesn't, okay? That's where a multi-pace training program or cycle is key. And again, you could repeat this 4-week cycle again, and it gives you a point of improvement. Okay, how better did we do this next 4-week cycle, okay? Again, it gives you points of comparison, okay? And take a look at my training programs, and you'll see I have multiple paces across the board in all my training programs because I want my athletes to be as well-rounded as possible. The more well-rounded you are, the more dangerous you're going to be when you're competing, okay? And last but not least, number 10, practice being aggressive, okay, and competing, okay? And obviously doing it while you're staying relaxed, okay? And again, whether it be longer races or shorter races, it doesn't matter. Staying relaxed is important either way. But in something like in cross country or hilly courses where time doesn't really matter, that's where you practice competing. That's where you practice passing these folks on the hills or maintaining good stride patterns in the rolling areas and not getting into trouble, whether it be going out fast, you're practicing that, or finishing fast, okay? There's a lot of things you could do. You could do 1,000-meter repeats where you run like a bat out of hell for the first 200 and then you settle in. Or 1,000-meter repeats where you have the pace for the 800 and then you run like a bat out of hell for the final 200, okay? It simulates different things, going out fast and finishing fast. And, that's the point where you could have a group of people and they're staying together for that first 800 and then they're competing with each other the final 200. simulates competition, okay? Particularly if they're doing it on the grass or a field without pace being a constant point of focus, okay? And again, like I said, for cross country and hilly races and hilly road races, time doesn't really matter. Okay, that's where competing comes into play. But if you're fit enough and you're consistent and you're doing a lot of these little things, the time will be there when you need it to be. Okay, and that's where time comes into play too. All right, and like I said, it doesn't matter in those races. What matters is competing and staying relaxed, being aggressive where you need to be, being alert, looking at your competition. You know, there are things you could look out for. Okay, these people are getting tired. I'm closing the gap between these people. Or these folks went out way too fast. I'm not going to go out with them. I'm going to run your race and not theirs. Okay, particularly if you have a game plan. The last thing you want to do is deviate from the game plan and then put yourself into trouble. Unless it's a decision you make and you can hold it, then as a coach, you know, it's a bold thing to do, but plan to hear from a coach or hear it from the coach if you deviate from the race plan and it fails. But I would advise, you know, anybody to not deviate from a race plan during a championship or one of the most important races, you know, especially one you've been training for all season. You know, if you're going to run 3:30 for the marathon and it's 8-minute miles across the board, if you run out, you know, you go out and you'll be fit enough, you could run the first 15 miles at 7:30 per mile, and it could feel like you're crawling, but it will come back and catch up to you if you're not ready for it, and that's what we want to avoid. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. Hope this was informative. If it was, please hit the thumbs up. Let me know in the comments down below. You know, I do speak from experience as well. I want to give you as much insight as possible from my career as a competitor and a coach, with hopes of helping you get better, or helping you help your athletes get better, be faster, stronger, more diverse, whatever it is, more well-rounded. My goal is to make this into one of the best running channels out there and the most detailed and comprehensive running channel out there with regards to everything across the board. So I hope that you find that here. Take a look at some of my videos and let me know what you think of them too. And if you do hit the subscribe button, let me know in the comments down below so I can thank you personally. I really, really appreciate their support. So be safe, have a great season, and I'll talk to you next time.